Hi, my name is Alazar Musi, and this is my video discussion thread on ethical violations and board discipline. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and so I tried to look up actions taken by the board here in Texas. However, it was really difficult to find. I searched, but I did was able to pull up actions taken by the board in Louisiana, and they have an up-to-date list. And I was able to see actions taken in this past January, going all the way back to 2020. Well, I mean, all the way back, but I read through all these cases going to the beginning of last year, 2021. So now to answer these questions, what are the most common reasons for a board to discipline a counselor, and what is your personal reaction as you read through the list? So I'm going to reference an article that I read. It's called Licensure Board Actions Against Professional Counselors. It was written in 2017, and the authors are C. Emmanuel Ahaya, which I think is, I'm saying it correctly, but just to spell it, Ahia. And then the second author is Peter J. Bacone, and it addresses violations that occur across the U.S. and the disciplinary actions that followed. Out of the 30 violations that was listed, I'm just going to mention the top. And so I found that dual relationships was the most common, and it followed by unprofessional conduct, then professional misrepresentation, and finally being convicted of a non-counseling related crime. And so that was, again, my reaction to these is, I'm not shocked, but we're all human. But I'm also shocked, right? Like, I understand that it's easy to, you know, forget, right? I guess, but I guess it just doesn't make sense. A lot of these things doesn't make, like, dual relationships. It's easy for me to create a boundary, right? Um, um, but like, I guess the part that I'm like, well, it makes sense. Is the unprofessional conduct. Like, it's easy to, I think the one that I'm going to mention today will kind of to expand on it. It's about alcohol, right? Alcohol usage. And apparently the misconduct was, even though it was after he had already conducted his counseling sessions, he drank afterward, right? But it was still during work hours. And so it was like, okay, well, obviously that's unprofessional and inappropriate. But I guess it was like he didn't account for the work hours. So it's like, wow, it's interesting how something like that can happen, and I'm really curious how that would happen. But I don't drink on it during, there's no way this is ever gonna happen with me. So, but I just thought it was interesting. Now, what are some themes that I see? Is negligence, really. I see negligence, and all of them, I believe, involve impairment, right? This, like, I think even for dual relationships, I believe it takes some level of impairment for a counselor to make those mistakes. And so, because we do have it written and communicated regularly, there's also other counselors that we can refer to for advice, right? And so I guess it's even impairment along with a lack of community, or a lack of accountability. And so now the case that I chose was related to, like I mentioned this earlier, a counselor who drank. He had conducted. He's a counselor at a university, and he drank, had alcohol, consumed alcohol after his 2 sessions that he had for the day. But I believe he might have consumed it. Now, it doesn't state this explicitly, but I believe for it to, he must have, and it was, oh, by the way, it was also video session. So he must have been working from home or whatever, but he had been, it had been noted that he had been drinking during work hours. And so, Now, to identify the ACA Code of Ethics and the state's code that was violated, so to refer to the list that they provided from their code, it was the LARS 371110 A3 and A9. It was also the LAC 46LX 46. I said that twice. Sorry. LX 46 1301 A and B, then 2107 A1A, and then 2117 A1A. For the codes, the ACA codes, the ones that I never really researched through, and I was really curious why there isn't more, and maybe that might be something that needs to be addressed, right? But I think the two that relate to this is the ACA codes of ethics, Code of Ethics A4A, referring to avoiding harm, and ACA Code of Ethics C2G, impairment. Now, the outcome of the board discipline was, and it's a list, so bear with me. So the license to counsel, his license to counsel was reprimanded, and before he can get his go back to it and earn back his licensure, he would need to obtain 3 continuing education hours in ethics approved by the NVCC, the ACA, and the Louisiana Counseling Association by June 30th, 2022. He would need to do the standard renewal requirements for LPC licensure. He would need to pay the legal cost of $1,200 within 2 years. You would have to also pay the $500 fee for violation within 2 years. Then he would have to complete a memorandum of understanding with the LPCBE Professional Assistance Program Committee and comply with terms. He cannot violate any terms or conditions for 2 years. He needs to report the terms of consent agreement to any board or agency in the state of licensure that he's going to practice in, and then he has to waive all rights to appeal this adjudication. And so, long words. So, what does the ACA Code of Ethics and your state code say about counselor impairment? I would like to use Texas State Administrative Code. So I'm going to start with the ACA code first and then go to the Texas one because I'm more familiar with Texas Administrative Code since this is where I will be practicing gut billing. So the ACA code of ethics that applies is C2G, and it states that counselors need to observe themselves for signs of impairment, refrain from practice when impaired, and must seek guidance and support until they are healthy and are able to properly resume practice. He should have seen like, hey, I'm making bad decisions, right? And if I'm gonna be like, if I can't wait, till after hours, if I can't wait till the weekend, maybe there is something wrong. And so that would be one. And another is the Texas Administrative Code Rule 681.41, subsection DD, states, a licensee must not provide services while impaired by a physical, mental, or medical condition or by medication, drugs, or alcohol. So I believe those are the ones. I probably also should share the ACA code. And if you don't mind, bear with me for a moment, because I will pull up ACA. It's going to be code A, and thank you for your patience. And the one that I mentioned earlier, so this is the one I want to use. I think it was in. A4A, thank you. It took me a minute. And again, thank you for being patient. But avoiding harm. Counselors act to avoid harming their clients, trainees, and research participants, and to minimize or to remedy unavoidable or anticipated harm. And I believe harm could have been done had, because we're, like as counselors, a client may reach out in a state of an emergency, and if I made myself available to them during work hours, um, and I'm drinking during work hours, I'm leaving room for harm, and so I believe that was another code that applies. Um, so, what is a question that this brings to mind for you? Not any questions. I think these are pretty straightforward. And so, but thank you for letting me share, and also thank you for bearing with me as I pulled up my documents. And so, hope you enjoy. And I would love to hear your feedback. Let me know what you think, or any codes that you find that I may have missed out that might apply to this. If you're from Texas, maybe help me find the list that maybe that I couldn't find. So, but thank you for watching, and thank you for hearing me out. Have a wonderful night.